Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Bahrain and Iran violently suppress peaceful demonstrations. Tunisia lifts curfew but extends state of emergency. And divisions widen between the Egyptian army and youth. Mosaic, world news from the Middle East, begins now.
We start with Egypt's latest developments. The Constitutional Amendment Committee, headed by Counsel Tara al-Bishri, began its work today after convening a meeting with members of the Military Supreme Council. The Supreme Council requested the committee complete its task within 10 days. A revolution coalition member said a list of candidates for Prime Minister was compiled and will be submitted to the Military Council. The coalition of the youth of the revolution has called for the formation of a transitional government of technocrats within 1 month. Our correspondent Samir Omari reports on these events from Cairo.
We hope that everyone will create the appropriate environment for the administration of the country's affairs during this phase, until the administration is handed over to legitimate civil authority elected by the people.
So the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces demanded an end to the protests. Many believe it is impossible to meet this demand, while class protests and worker strikes are escalating after the revolution's success. Moreover, participants in the March of Millions planned for this coming Friday may demand an explanation for the delay in meeting the revolution's demands. Before the statement was issued, there was another protest by those who played a major role in impeding and cracking down on the protests in recent years, police officers. They now want to send a message that they renounce the former regime's practices and are calling on all Egyptians to trust them again. They are demanding the prosecution of ousted Interior Minister Habib el-Adl. In their view, he should assume the full responsibility for the crimes committed against the protesters. Coinciding with the police officers' protest, journalists are convening their General Assembly without the customary security siege. Hundreds of journalists from various organizations came to the headquarters of the Journalists Association with two major messages. First, a condemnation of the government's media organizations due to their coverage of the revolution, and the second was the following.
The journalists are part of the people and part of this revolution. We fully support the people's demands, and alongside all other communities, we will monitor the implementation of these demands.
On the third day of the fall of President Hosni Mubarak's regime, journalists gathered here to affirm that they are part of the Egyptian revolution and that they will make sure its demands are met. They are completely committed to the cause of the Egyptian people, who announced ongoing demonstrations until the revolution achieves all of their demands. But who is the people's representative? And who speaks in the name of the revolution that erupted on January 25th and lasted 18 days until the head of the regime fell? This meeting seeks to provide an answer to these questions, while some believe that the meeting excluded the real revolutionaries.
After January 25th, you cannot exclude the true effective power, which is the Egyptian public of all classes and strata, including the youth.
So the ball is still in the court of the public, which brought down the regime and will continue to mobilize until a new system is built. A system that protects the citizens' rights and preserves the nation's rights. Samir Omar, Al Jazeera, Cairo.
Meanwhile, the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces said ongoing strikes and protests could lead to what it described as disastrous results in Egypt. Ziad al-Alaymi from the Executive Bureau of the Coalition of the Youth of the Revolution told Al Jazeera that citizens are called upon to renew their demonstrations in Tahrir Square in order to reaffirm their demands.
Demonstrations against the Yemeni president continue in Sana'a. Reports indicate several people were injured in clashes between pro- and anti-government protesters. Meanwhile, Yemeni activists confirm they will not be intimidated by attacks against them by Yemeni police and President Saleh's supporters.
As Yemeni President Ali Abdullah Saleh was announcing that his office is open to all Yemeni citizens, supporters of the regime were attacking anti-government demonstrators with sticks and stones. For the fourth consecutive day, Yemeni demonstrators took to the streets of Sana'a to demand the president to step down. The scene was similar to that on the streets of Tunis and Cairo. The same slogan chanted in Tunis and Cairo inspired them. The people want to topple the regime. They chanted while attempting to reach the presidential palace, which is supposedly open to them.
We live under oppressive conditions. We face the brunt of security agencies and the police. Today, we were attacked by the police.
In the midst of the Egyptian revolution, the Yemeni president, who has ruled the country for 30 years, promised not to seek re-election when his term expires in 2013. Yemeni government officials say that President Saleh is relying on the support of the armed security forces in dealing with the protesters. The government's handling of the situation in the last 2 days is being criticized by a number of international human rights organizations. Reports highlighted police violence that has escalated to electrocuting opposition members. The protest movement against the Yemeni president was active before the Egyptian revolution and even before the Tunisian revolution. The movement raged again 4 days ago when a massive Yemeni crowd gathered to celebrate Egypt's accomplishment. Yemeni activists confirmed that they will continue to mobilize through the internet. Najla Abu Mer'e, BBC.
Bahrain's opposition bloc, Al-Wifaq, suspended its membership in parliament due to what it described as the authorities' brutal treatment of demonstrators. This comes after another young man was killed today by Bahraini security forces. The killing took place while authorities were trying to suppress a funeral procession of another person who was killed yesterday. Eyewitnesses confirmed that security forces fired birdshot, rubber bullets, and tear gas during the funeral procession, in which thousands participated, including women and children. Yesterday, one person died from his injuries, and 20 others were hurt as Bahraini police attempted to disperse citizens protesting against the political and social conditions.
وعلى ضوء ما جرى من حوادث متفرقة يوم أمس.
In light of the sporadic incidents that have taken place yesterday and today, where there was, with regret, 2 deaths among our dear sons, we therefore extend our sincere condolences to their families, praying to God the Almighty to grant them endurance and consolation. As everyone knows, we have asked the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Jawad bin Salem al-Urayed, to form a special committee to verify the reasons behind those regretful incidents that have taken place.
موجة الاحتجاجات التي تجتاح البلدان العربية ضد الأنظمة الحاكمة امتدت إلى البحر.
The wave of demonstrations erupting across Arab countries against ruling regimes reached Bahrain. Hundreds of demonstrators in the capital Manama and nearby regions took to the street to denounce the government's policies and to demand an end to corruption. Bahrain's authorities ordered its police force to deal with the protesters and disperse them. The Interior Ministry said an illegal march took place in different regions, and following government warnings that it was illegal, it was confronted with tear gas. However, the clash led to the death of one young man, in addition to the injury of dozens of demonstrators.
إضافة إلى 10 الإصابات بين الصفوف المحتجة.
واجهت السلطة هذه المظاهرات في أكثر من 25 منطقة.
Bahrain's authorities met the demonstrations that took place in more than 25 areas with tear gas and live ammunition.
ونتج عن ذلك سقوط هذا الشهيد.
The result was the martyrdom of a person for whom we are participating in a procession.
والناس بالآلاف يحتشدون هنا في منطقة الديش.
Thousands of people are gathered here, including women and men, old and young.
وكبار وصغار.
وزير الداخلية البحريني الشيخ راشد بن عبد الله آل خليفة.
The country's interior minister, Sheikh Rashid bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, promised to enforce legal measures against the perpetrator if the investigation reveals the use of weapons was illegal. The demonstrations were not limited to Manama, but reached other regions and numerous villages across the country. This led to the disruption of the public's activities, business in general, and resulted in slowing down the movement of traffic. The protesters clashed with security forces in Manama and surrounding areas, including the villages of Karsakan and Nuwaydrat. The numerous injured protesters were taken to the hospital, among them women and elderly people suffering from gunshot wounds.
Unfortunately, our system here in Bahrain does not know how to deal with these citizens. The authorities still deal with people of Bahrain arrogantly. They deal with the people as if they are the enemy, not as people or humans.
Bahrain's government has still not revealed the number of injured. However, news agencies reported dozens were injured and said the majority of injuries were caused by rubber bullets and tear gas inhalation. In yesterday's Day of Anger, demonstrators demanded political reform and additional freedoms, and a stop to what they referred to as political naturalization.
Let's go to Tunisia now, where authorities have lifted a nationwide curfew in force since January the 12th at the height of the popular uprising there against the regime. However, the Interior Ministry has maintained a state of emergency until further notice. The state of emergency has been in force since January the 14th, when former President Ben Ali fled the country. Press TV's Mohammed Abu Saif joins us now live from Tunis to tell us what's happening there. Mohammed, first of all, with the state of emergency still in place, how is this state? Is it going to affect people's daily lives and, of course, the protests that we've been seeing taking place?
Yeah, the state of emergency is still there. They didn't lift it. The authorities, they announced today that they left the curfew, which has imposed 4 weeks ago or so. Until now, there is no activities in the center of the town of Tunisia. There is no protests. There is no celebration. Maybe because it is a public holiday today. But as yesterday, I expect maybe will be some celebrations or demonstrations after a couple of hours from now.
Meanwhile, at least 2 people have been killed during riots in the Iranian capital, Tehran. Anti-government groups, including members of the terrorist group Mujahideen Khalq organization, the MKO, staged the riots on Monday. One of those people killed was a young man from the western city of Pave. 27-year-old Sanajale was a student at the Art University of Tehran. He was shot dead by an MKO member in central Tehran. His father has spoken out against those behind the killing of his son.
انشاءالله با شهدای صدر اسلام و انقلاب اسلامی مشهور باشه.
فکر میکنید چه کسانی پشت این قضیه، پشت این فتنه هستند؟
عرض شود خدمت در درجه اول من با توجه به اینکه انقلاب اسلامی نظام 2500 ساله طاغوت و برچید، قطعا همه ما باید پیروی نظامی باشیم که آرمان شهداست و پیروی قرآن و دین مبین اسلام. قطعا تو این شرایط که جنگ سرد نمانده و قدرت شوروی منحل شده، الان جبهه ضد خودش و امپریالیسم اسلام میدانه. هر جا ندای آزادی خواهانه و ندای استقلال طلبانه در بیاد، قطعا اینا میخوان به عناوینی لوس کنن، همونطوری که استعذار دارین دست امپریالیسم و دست صهیونیسم اختن. تو قتل دانشمندان هسته‌ای ما واقعا روشن و محرز شد. حالا نمیدانم چرا این آقایان کوتاه نمیان، چرا مردم و جوانای مردم دعوت به اغتشاش میکنن، تا اینکه منافقین کوردل که به هر دری میزنن برای ساقط شدن این نظام و نابود شدن این مملکت ایران اسلامی. به هر حال جوانای مثل سانه که دانشجویان و پاکدلن و ساعت 6 تو خوابگاهش بوده، شامم خوردن، رفته وسایل خرید همون کلاسش رو مهیا بکنه با رفیقاش. خب اینا سوء استفاده کردن، چند تا جوان ساده پاک مثل ایشان رو شهید میکنن.
The popular protest fever has spread to the Iranian capital, Tehran. Protests led by the opposition were held today in Tehran in support of the Tunisian and Egyptian revolutions. Clashes erupted between the protesters and security forces, killing one demonstrator and injuring 9 police officers, as confirmed by the Iranian authorities. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton urged Iran to respect the right of its people to demonstrate peacefully. Ashton also criticized Iran's crackdown on reform and opposition leaders. Meanwhile, Clinton urged the Iranian government to respect the fundamental freedoms of its citizens. Abdul Latif Omar reports.
The success of the Tunisian and Egyptian revolutions has inspired the Iranian opposition to revive its intifada, launched in the aftermath of the 2009 re-election of President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Following the footsteps of the Tunisian and Egyptian revolutions, many Iranian protesters started to realize that change is possible, despite the swift reaction of the authorities. The same websites that promoted the Tunisian and Egyptian revolutions are now being used to upload videos and news of Iran's crackdown on protesters. Authorities blamed the People's Mujahideen Halq organization for the riots, which killed 1 protester and injured 9 police officers.
Nearly 150 people demonstrated in an area west of Tehran. They set trash bins on fire and were confronted by police and security forces. Several rioters were arrested. Unfortunately, police and security officers came under fire and 9 officers were injured. Despite medical efforts, 1 person died from his injuries. The heads of strife are responsible for spilling the blood of our youth.
During the first session of the new parliamentary round, Conservative Iranian members of parliament called for holding the heads of the strife accountable in reference to opposition leaders including Mir Hussein Musawi, Mehdi Karoubi and former Iranian President Mohammad Khatami. Iranian authorities placed several opposition leaders under house arrest in a bid to prevent them from taking part in the protests. Washington seized the opportunity to condemn the Iranian government and hold it accountable.
We call for holding the Iranian government responsible because it is again using the security forces and resorting to violence in a bid to prevent its people from expressing their opinions. We support international human rights for the Iranian people, who deserve to be treated the same way as their Egyptian counterparts. This is part of their fundamental rights. We believe the Iranians should commit to opening up their country's political system and hear the voices of the opposition and civil society.
Slogans like these, "Down with Ben Ali" in Tunisia and "The people want to topple the regime" in Egypt, are being voiced here in Azadi Square in Tehran. This time it reads, "Death to the dictator." It's a new experiment taking place here in Iran. If it succeeds, it will change the course of history. But if it fails, it will be added to the list of unsuccessful coup attempts in Iran.
Returning to the current unrest in Tehran, which marks the beginning of the end of the regime of Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. This according to Iranian expert Menashe Amir, speaking earlier today with Israel television correspondent Walid Yosef.
According to Ali Larijani, the Speaker of the Iranian Majlis, they didn't learn anything from their experience. Larijani today claimed that what happened in Tehran and other cities yesterday, it was a bunch of hooligans who got their order from the United States and the Zionist entity. It means that they are not going to listen to what the people want to say, and they continue to suppress the Iranians, and they will make all the efforts to prevent any further protest. But the situation today in Iran is totally different from what happened after the Iranian presidency elections some 1 year and 9 months ago. Today, the Iranians have the support of the United States, of Obama, Clinton, Joe Biden, and the others. And today, other countries, people of the other countries in the region, like Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt, Bahrain, Yemen, and others, they also demand their rights. And altogether, it gives a hope that it's a very nice beginning in Iran, and this time the efforts of the government to suppress them will not succeed so easily. I don't want to say that tomorrow or in 18 days in Iran will happen exactly what happened in Egypt, for example, but this is the beginning of the end in Iran. And after 1 year that the Iranian opposition has been inactive, they showed that they exist, they are waiting, and they will use all the means and opportunities to demand the rights of the Iranian people.
Does that mean that we just wait and expect till the international sanctions and the demonstrations inside Iran just has the effects, and at the end of the day, they collapse the regime?
No, I didn't say so. What I want to say is supporting the Iranian protest is another mean to accelerate the pressure upon the regime in Iran. Not only sanctions, not only international condemnations, and not only a different kind of economic punities, but also encouraging the Iranian people to demand their rights. And once they are sure that the United States and European countries are with them, it will encourage them. I remember that during our broadcast in Kol Israel in Persian, the Voice of Israel, but once the United States invaded Iraq, we got many messages from our listeners in Iran that demanded the United States to come and to rescue them from the regime in Iran. And they demanded me to give the message to President Bush. And after a year, I met President Bush in a private reception in Los Angeles, and I introduced myself to him, and I told him, I gave him the message we got from the Iranian people, and he smiled and he said, but you know how much we are stuck in Iraq.
Thousands of guests from across Lebanon filled the BL Exhibition Center. The 6th anniversary of the assassination of Martyr Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri was marked by moments of sadness and raw emotions by the families of all the martyrs. Maha Dahir reports.
Premier Saad al-Hariri met with his supporters in a grand and loving atmosphere. Thousands of Lebanese came from across the country to affirm their loyalty to the path of the martyred Premier Rafiq al-Hariri, who will never be forgotten. After standing for the Lebanese national anthem, a Muslim Christian prayer was recited for the salvation of the martyrs' souls and to affirm the ideal of coexistence in Lebanon, which the martyred premier and his son, Saad al-Hariri, had been pursuing. The walls of the hall were covered with the pictures of the martyrs, their famous quotes and prominent chapters in their lives. A series of short films was also shown, in which the families talked about the experiences that marked them most during the martyrs' lives. The commemoration of the 6th anniversary of the February 14th incident was presented by journalist Giselle Houri. It ended on an optimistic note, with hopes for a new day and a new era. These hopes and aspirations were never abandoned by the people of the Sidar Revolution. February 14th, 2011 was marked by an intifada that was caused by a previous intifada. It was an occasion to reaffirm the principles of the Sidar Revolution amid a consensus that the future will be different than the past. From BL, Maha Daher, Future TV.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible by grants from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Firedoll Foundation, and by support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news, read our blog, get transcripts of past shows, and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.